Let's now take a look at what the Module Federation plugin does for our container application. So we're going to take a look at a very similar diagram. The first thing I want to address is the fact that we had created a second file called bootstrap.js when we did the integration process. So back inside of our editor, here's my container application. We now have a bootstrap.js file, which contains our actual application code, and an index.js file. And inside of index.js, all we are really doing here is importing the bootstrap file and nothing else. And what's more, we're using some different syntax for the import. So what is this index.js file all about, and why do we add it in? Well, this really gives Webpack the opportunity to realize that before executing that bootstrap.js file, we have to go and fetch some code from the products project. That's what the index.js file is for. It is just to allow Webpack that opportunity to go and get some additional JavaScript and make sure that we've got the project code, or the products code ready, along with the faker code ready as well, before we try to actually do something with it. When we actually execute the contents of the bootstrap.js file, the expectation is that we will have access to this module and all the different dependencies that it requires. So if we tried to go directly into our bootstrap.js file, in other words, if we tried to execute this first, we would end up with an error. We would end up with some kind of message that says, sorry, but we don't have any code for products. We don't know where to get that code. We don't have it available. So by adding in the index.js file, we are just giving Webpack an opportunity inside the browser to go and fetch some dependencies from products before actually executing the code of Bootstrap. We can kind of see this rather easily inside the browser. So if we go back over to our browser, open up that network request tab again, we could take a look at that main.js file. So if you click on it and go to either preview or response, you can then go down to the very, very bottom of the file and then scroll back up just a little bit, and you might see an entry right here for source index.js. This is the index.js file inside of our container. We once again have this string with all the code from it. You'll see that the code has been transformed a little bit. And so now, rather than just having something that says import bootstrap, we've now got something that says require in bootstrap.js or source bootstrap.js. And then after that, try to execute the code inside of it. So long story short, once again, this is really just giving us, or really giving Webpack the opportunity to go and fetch some code from products before running our index.js file. Okay, so back over to this diagram. So again, inside of our container, we've got the index.js file that's really generating main.js, and then our bootstrap is really being output as a separate file. We first run main.js, that's going to try to fetch some additional code from products, and then execute the code inside of bootstrap.js. Now let's start to put our container and our product stuff together inside of one diagram and understand the real flow of what's going on. Okay, so in the browser, we've got a series of steps that go on. We've then got whatever is coming out of our Webpack dev server for container, and on the right, we've got products. So when we first go to localhost 8080, the first thing we do is download and execute the main.js file from our container. Once we execute that file, Webpack then sees a require statement saying that, oh, we need to import and somehow execute bootstrap.js. So Webpack is going to start to download that file. As it starts to download that file, Webpack also realizes that it needs something from the products project in order to execute Bootstrap. So simultaneously, as it starts to download bootstrap.js, Webpack inside the browser is going to fetch remote entry from our products application. This remote entry JS file says that in order to run bootstrap.js, we have to download source index.js and faker from products as well. So Webpack is going to download source index.js and everything for faker. Once it has completed the download for bootstrap, for source index, and for faker, now it finally has all the code that is needed to actually execute bootstrap. So it runs the code inside of Bootstrap. We've got everything from products, including the source index.js file and faker over there as well. Another way that we can really verify this entire process is by taking a look at the sequence of requests that are being executed. So back over here inside of our network request log, we can take a look at the waterfall chart. So inside of our waterfall chart, you'll see that the first thing that happens is we download and execute the main.js file. Once we execute that file, we then realize, okay, we also need something from products, and we need that bootstrap file. So simultaneously, Webpack goes to download the Bootstrap file, and it also knows that it needs to download the remote entry file to figure out how to get some code from the products project. Once it gets the remote entry file, it then sets up another 2 requests to get the Faker.js stuff and the index.js stuff from products. So it's only when these 2 requests right here are finished and we get the ability to execute the code from products that essentially all 3 of these different files are ran. The Bootstrap, Faker, and index.js. That's what's going on behind the scenes. Okay, so all this stuff I know is pretty intense. There's a lot of stuff going on here with this module federation stuff, and it actually even goes deeper than what I presented. It turns out that there's a lot of extra kind of corner cases around handling dependencies for stuff like Faker. And we're going to explore some of that as soon as we start to add in our final micro front end, which is the cart application. So let's take a pause right here. We're going to come back to the next video and make 1 or 2 changes to our products project. I want to point out 1 or 2 things around it that is not quite great right now. In some ways, we could probably improve some of the structure of our code. So quick pause, and we'll do some improvements in just a moment.